Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project Magnetic Reversal News and Shinrin Yoku bringing you a grand solar minimum update Saturday, October 3rd, just before midnight 2020. The models are in, and it's a sin. Winter has come in fall. But the big story, fall foliage faltering under extreme drought conditions. That is alliteration and a pretty ugly picture. But not anywhere and not everywhere. And we'll show you why soon. Keep calm. It's boom time. And not all places with drought look this crappy. What's going on with the hazy skies in southwest Colorado? Well, the health department says smoke, but there's no fire. And the weather service says clouds, but clouds don't look like smoke. So clearly, the scientists that are working the system are clueless. Atlanta, Georgia just suffered its coldest end to September in over 40 years. That's 40 years of tears for the global warmists. From September 15th through the end of the month, Atlanta averaged high temperatures just a smidge over 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The last time we had an average high that was this cool was back in 1979, according to the officials. Those are official. Georgia's capital city is evidence of how low the recent Arctic blasts have been descending, riding anomalously far south. That's the meridional flow we've been talking about. The breakdown of the jet stream, where you get this extreme wavy pattern, which brings Arctic temperatures all the way down to the tropics and back up. So instead of a zonal flow, which is straight across, you get a wave. And Atlanta, Georgia just suffered from that wave. Not only that, Monmouth County, New Jersey receives its earliest snow ever in 127 years of record keeping. That's pretty early. That means this goes back to the Dalton. Monmouth County, New Jersey is one of the many regions in the U.S. coping with yet another blast of winter at the end of summer. What a bummer. More than two-thirds of the con U.S. is currently suffering temps 4 degrees C to 14 C below the norm. And now even some all-time record-busting early season snow has been added to the mix. Isn't that getting jiggy? Monmouth County hasn't received accumulating snow this early in the season since record-keeping began in 1927. In 127 years. That's way before 1927. According to NOAA data, the Freehold Weather Station hasn't actually recorded settling snow the first 19 days of October since books were started back in 1893. There's the date, with the earliest being an inch received on October 20th, and we're nowhere near that date. That was back in 1940. However, the year 2020 is officially the start to the grand solar minimum, according to Cap Alon over at Electroverse, and many others. I said 2019 is the start, but it's your call. According to many scientists, on Friday, October 2nd, the record books were rewritten as the fifth Arctic blast from the season enveloped two-thirds of the U.S. and delivered Mammoth its earliest snowfall ever. Those are the facts, and we're going to go over to the GFS to check out more facts. Global warming goodness dumping all across the western U.S. coming soon. Take a look at that. October is going to be an October to remember in the high country. Early ski season openings and just fun in the mountains. So get up there because you don't have much time. The snow starts coming in earnest on next weekend. End of the weekend. So if you're up in the high country, don't die. On Saturday, you might get stuck in a storm in the high Sierras, and you may become a casualty. This is happening all across the country, and we're going to get to that. Warm and very dry for much of the west. Locally heavy rainfall for parts of Florida. Very warm and dry conditions will lead to critical fire weather conditions over portions of the west in the coming days and eastward into the plains. Meanwhile, locally heavy rainfall is expected in parts of Florida through the weekend. Mainly cool weather will prevail for the Midwest and East Coast with periodic bouts of light rainfall and frost warnings from Michigan across to South Dakota and down into Nebraska. And say it ain't soda. Kansas. Yes. So check your crops, cover them, and let's talk about Europe. Another winter snowstorm blankets the Pyrenees as well as the Alps. We predicted it a week ago, and they got it. The Arctic is heating up slightly however, is how this article starts. Not early snowfall throughout the Alps is, it happens. It happens every solar minimum. It happened back 2010, 2009, at the same time in the solar cycle as we are now, back in the bottom. So the next year or so, we're going to be breaking more records as the magnetosphere breaks down and those cosmic rays increase, increasing the cloud nucleation, increasing rainfall and snow events, increasing hail size, increasing lightning duration, etc. It's time to prepare. The preparation starts now. More snow is falling. It has hit the Pyrenees and is now arriving in the southern Alps. It has caused some flooding, and people have been reported missing. Snow this time of year benefits the high-altitude glaciers immensely, as well as the wildflower production. But people that are caught up in the high country, that are left-leaning, that believe in global warming, boom, they can get caught in an instant because of their malaise. And if you don't properly plan in these environments, anything can happen. Here's a good example. Bodies of sweetheart doctors found half buried in snow days after they vanished up in the Pyrenees. Now, couple Linda Bosch and Joan Buxadera were taking on famous hiking trail in Spain's Pyrenees Mountains when tragedy struck. Yeah, the storm that we predicted, obviously they don't watch the channel, hit, and they went from warm fall days to being buried in hypothermic in just minutes. And that ended their life because they didn't follow the 7 Ps. They probably went out, light packs and shorts, and was like, oh, isn't this great? And then boom, destruction hits. Temperature drops 40 degrees and the snow starts falling. And it's a cold front that entered, and it is not letting up for 72 hours. So if you don't have the proper equipment, what do you do? Well, if you know survival techniques, you can build a snow hut, start a fire, and survive. But these people didn't have that option. They sat behind a rock, got buried in snow, and died. It's a tragic story about the tragically unprepared for what's coming. Here we see sea ice thickness yesterday, which is in the multi-decadal norms going back to 2004, right in the normal range, almost half of the Arctic covered in ice after the minimum just passed 5 weeks ago. So record ice building, and in the forecast for the next 2 weeks is for epic snow up there, and the ice is going to rapidly build. You watch. Here we see 4 gigatons of ice yesterday gaining on Greenland as the mainstream media continues to report on Greenland melting. Now, there's a distinction between the cratonic ice, the ice on the continent, continental ice, versus sea ice. And these are the glaciers that extend off Greenland. Now, the sea ice is breaking down because the ocean waters are warm there. But the ice on the continent of Greenland itself is at record highs and will be building to record levels this winter. Now, the one thing we have to worry about is that fresh water. The sea ice is fresh water frozen on top of salt water. And that's going to dilute the situation once more. Those of you that know about the Beaufort Gyre are waiting for that fresh water to expel from the Arctic. And recent papers coming out this month suggest that the melting of the sea ice sheets in Greenland led to the mini ice age. So we're just seeing small fragments of our history repeating itself, and scientific papers that are peer-reviewed corroborating some of the predictions that we made years ago. 4 years ago when we started the channel, we told you the whole proxy. We told you the proxy data, the reason we started the channel, what would happen. And since then, in 4 years, we have gotten almost 0 incorrect predictions. Everything we said was going to happen has happened. And that's why the channel continues to grow. And the next step you're all waiting for is Iceland to erupt. This is the flexure point that will kick off the Armageddon-like cascade of events leading to grid down, Stone Age, mass unrest, food shortages, etc., etc. Escape from LA, baby. Coming soon. Seismic update. We have some action on the west coast of the U.S. moving up towards the Cascadia rupture zone. The biggest earthquake just kicked off moments ago as I bloviate here in Willits at 3.5. There's been a large 4 magnitude reported in Hawaii in the last several days, and we'll get to that. But the largest earthquake swarm in Southern California history has ended, but that's not over. We have moderate quakes around the globe on the Ring of Fire, 5.5 in Japan. Looks like a 5.3, 5.1 in Koshima, Japan. Several on the lower part of the Ring of Fire here in the Tonga and Solomon Island regions, 5.1, 5.3 in Papua New Guinea. But the big star tonight is the quake, 5.3 in eastern Greenland. And we believe this is associated with some of that magmatic rift activity in Iceland. And there has been massive snows on the eastern coast of Greenland that may be pushing that craton back down and causing a little shift. These are all signs of the times of the grand solar minimum. Volcano watch, how big was that earthquake? Well, it registered at 4 magnitude on the Big Island just days ago, associated with hundreds of other quakes, which are typical below 2.5 mag. As magma and lava tubes readjust due to the last major eruption. We have a huge lava lake here, and it is going to create chaos if another eruption occurs because it will be a phreomagmatic eruption, huge amounts of steam and ash. So it will be quite visually pleasing, but most of the people on the Big Island will hate it. And it's inevitable because the Big Island is active and has been erupting for millions of years and will not stop. But we'll get more active into the next grand solar minimum period for the next few decades because of weakened magnetosphere, increased cosmic rays, and the fact that people don't understand what we're saying. This is the natural attitude of the platitude of the cyclic nature of climate. It has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with CO2, everything to do with the sun and the universe you live in, because in my geologic expertise and experience, we've been experiencing a 25,000-year cycle in 2 parts forever since the beginning of geologic history and life on Earth. I can go back to the Cambrian and show it to you on a geologic cross-section. Anywhere there's exposed sedimentary rock, I can show you this catastrophe cycle that has been ongoing for hundreds of millions of years without reproach, has not stopped, has not slowed down. And this is even in times when glacial ice is not present on planet Earth. So something has to be causing sea level to go up and down every 25,000 years like a clock. There's a sea level rise section and a fall section. We have a deep water facies and a shallow water facies every meter in any rock type, basin wide, across the world, anywhere you look, starting from the beginning of time on Earth. And that is the galactic clock. That is the catastrophic clock cycle. So, get yourself up to speed. Let's check out space weather telemetry. We can see that the sun is actually quieting down slightly. But the biggest indicator here is plasma wind speed. It is dropping off a cliff now down around below 420. It's been up above 500 for almost a week. So our prediction brings the KP down to 0. And you can see the ramp down here from KP3 through 2 yesterday through KP1 today and KP0 in the morning. So if you're watching this in the AM and you want to know about KP, go to spaceweathernews.com or simply in the Google box, the Googler, the upper box, type in X/ray flux, F-L-U-X. X-ray flux will get you the GOES X-ray flux data set. Click on the second link down and you'll get this box, estimated planetary K index, for your pleasure. Now, why would you want to download this information? Because the K index is an indicator of the full moon effect or when psychotic events will happen. Down at KP0, we have people with cognitive diminution going a little crazy. So there's that. There's also human health risks, including myocardial infarction and other health ailments down at the KP0 level. When we get above KP7, same thing happens. People go crazy and people have strokes and heart attacks. So both extremes are to be considered if you're trying to watch your health as it's involved with the environmental condition. So right now it's looking like we're headed to KP0 and maybe some crazy stuff happens October 5th. If we stay in 0 for much of October, it will be an October to remember. Didn't we just have a September to remember? Textbooks and geoscientists may be wrong. Really? I can't believe that's a headline. About how the Alps were formed. They also may be wrong about every single topic that has ever been written in a textbook. Except Ben Davidson's textbook on the sun. Space, what is it? Weatherman's Guide to the Sun? I have no idea. It's his book, and he's purely profiting on it. No one else. And he barely shares any other related channels except the ones that he can profit on. So there's that. But let's get back to the science here. Textbooks and geoscientists may be wrong about the Alps. Well, of course. And the biggest problem is that catastrophic geology has been eliminated from the textbook. When it's my experience since the late 1980s that the only explanation for the sedimentary deposits across the world are catastrophic events. Now, based on the model, you need basin flexure and the slow accumulation of sediments. But what we see preserved in the stratigraphic record is one of catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe. In a periodicity of around 25,000 kiloyears, which has been occurring for hundreds of millions of years, with or without ice. And now the problem we had back in university is that what is the mechanism? So we just lean back on the solar dynamics mechanism of the Milankovitch cycles. Now the problem with that is recent data and studies have shown that orbital perturbations, as they may be, the Earth wobbling may have limited effect, and the Earth may not be wobbling at all. The whole planetary system may be wobbling or making a spiral motion, which is the precession of the equinoxes. So we're not actually wobbling. Maybe we're going in a 25,000-year, 26,000-year spiral through the Milky Way galaxy. And this would cause us to interact with high-level or low-level electrodynamic effects, or we are running into the wave, right? The galactic wave. And we're actually passing through the wave on a periodicity of 25,000 years. So when we pass through it, there bad things happen, and then we go back through it, bad things happen again. Now, what's the mechanism of sea level rise and fall? This is a 25,000-year cycle where we see, regardless of ice on the planet or not, the sea level or the facies model. In stratigraphy, when we look at the rocks, we can determine the environment it was deposited in. So it's either a shallow or a deep environment. And what we see in the stratigraphy is deep environment, shallow environment. Deep environment, shallow environment. Deep environment, shallow environment. Again and again and again. Time immemorial. For hundreds of millions of years. With or without ice. So we're still searching for the mechanism or the explanation of how the sea level goes away and then comes back without ice. It's my contention that in these times of low magnetic activity, the Earth actually gets larger and the water goes inside the planet. And then when it squeezes out, the oceans rise again. I know it's a little cutting edge and a little hokey, but it is the best explanation that I have based on the geologic record that I have looked at. If anyone wants to counter me on that, I'll be happy to take them out to any single site in the last 600 million years and point this out to them. And then there will be silence. If anyone has an alternative explanation to what I'm saying, please leave it below. And now this paper, let's get to it. Textbooks and geoscientists may be wrong. Yes, they're probably wrong about everything. About how the Alps were formed. Plate tectonics and slow movement of plates and uplift is also nonsense. I think during the event we're going into, we're going to see rapid inflation in the Earth, which causes the mid-ocean ridges to rapidly spread, and then that ocean plate has to be subducted under continental plate, pushing up mountains almost instantaneously. Mountain building in the slow process is basically disproven. And in this paper over here is another case of disproving that process. The uplift isn't happening in the Alps while the subduction is happening. So some other mechanism pushed these babies up about 30 million years ago. And they're claiming still with the mainstream concept, this is what they're claiming on this paper, that the plate subducted under and then was less buoyant, so it pushed it up. But now that it's melted, it's just going down. And so there's no more Alps formation. It's believable, but it's probably bullshit. Moving on, huge study of coronavirus cases in India offers some surprises to scientists. Well, I bet, because they don't know anything about this disease. What we do know is that 99.95% of the entire population of the globe will not die, which means, 1, it's not a pandemic. 2, lockdowns are ludicrous. 3, the powers that be are using this for nefarious reasons. Now, epidemiology and transmission dynamics of COVID-19 in 2 Indian states has proven that children spread the virus asymptomatically and that older people that have money don't die, especially if they're not intubated. Can you imagine that? So the paper, if we then translate it over to the U.S., proves that the majority of the dead people in our country are because of malpractice and improper intubation, which kills patients and adds to the death count. Now, the secretive group at the center of the nation's largest vaccine trials has gone blank. And that should be scary. And you know why? The secret group is the DSMB. And that is the members of a data and safety monitoring board. They're the ones who get to look under the hood while the trial is going on. They know who has been given the vaccine and who has been given the placebo. The very doctors running the trials as well, and the pharmaceutical companies that are behind the vaccine. And even the U.S. Food and Drug Administration doesn't know this information, but the DSMB does. Now, who are these people? Well, there's supposedly an oversight committee to protect the process of these trials. And they're the ones responsible for shutting down the AstraZeneca trial that caused spinal cord and multiple sclerosis in some people. But you wouldn't want some investor calling a DSMB member and saying, hey, how's the clinical trial looking? If you tell me, I'll give you 10% of whatever I make. Quote, unquote. If you think this is not going on, then you were born yesterday. And the DSMB members even say it doesn't even have to be nefarious. Parents of very ill children might be anxious about the trial drug that they're working on and might try to bribe them to get the drug into their hands. It's that simple. But if you do a quick little bit of research on the DSMB, the Data and Safety Monitoring Board, and their guidelines, you don't find out any information who's on the board, who's paid for the members, how they're appointed, or what have you. It's completely blank. The same thing happened almost a decade ago with multinational corporations providing safety data for their own products. Corporations like Monsanto did their own testing on genetically modified organisms and then told the industry, yeah, they're safe. We did our testing. The only problem is they don't provide the actual papers that are peer-reviewed to back it up. Most of the papers that they use are in-house, not peer-reviewed, and accepted by the Food and Drug Administration and many others. This is the crony capitalistic society we live on. And this is why most people are dying of cancer in the country and sick with diabetes or obese. Because the products that they're selling you are poison, and they know it. Because they want you in the hospitals. Because the pharmaceutical industry is directly connected with big ag. They go to the same meetings. You're just not allowed to hear about them. Just like the DSMB, the group responsible for protecting you from the vaccines that get released to the public. Now, did you know that in the last 30 years, almost no vaccine has been tested for actual efficacy and safety? These are short-term tests that prove nothing and simply get the drug on the market so the company can make millions, if not billions of dollars. Dr. Fauci is complicit in the ruse. I'm sure he has backdoor numbers flowing into his bank accounts, and everyone else who works in those corporations. They're not public action committees or some kind of government group that is a nonprofit. These are for-profit corporations that are paying six-figure salaries to liars like Fauci and others so that they can line their pockets, after they retire or in the interim with small pulses of cash to make them millionaires. Joe Biden claims he was poor growing up, but now he's a multimillionaire. Hunter Biden got millions of dollars from the Ukraine government. But there's no investigation on the Democrat side, just on the other side. Both sides are corrupt to the nth degree, 100% corrupt. The Republicans, the Democrats. The only people not corrupt are the other parties that are not allowed into the debate. We will never cure the plague that is crony capitalism and its effect on our government and our democracy. There is no democracy. Corporations make billions of dollars a year and they buy every single vote that is cast. If you think when you go to the ballot and you pull your lever for the person that you want, that you had something to do with it, well, then the CIA and NASA have done their job correctly. Because in 1942, they decided that the only way that they could win is for all information to be disseminated as disinformation. And the day that everything you believe is incorrect is the day they win. And that day has come. COVID 1984. You're living it. And it doesn't matter who you vote for because you only get two choices, even though there's 18 on the ballot. Only the one scumbag or the other will win. Period. And it will do nothing to change the fact that the planet you live in is going to be continuously raped and destroyed and polluted. It doesn't matter which side you vote for. That will continue. And it will only end when the system of slavery that we live in ends. 99% of the population works in the slave model. They're born. When they become an adult, they have to work their entire life for a boss that they hate, for a wage that barely pays their bills, while they're depressed and overworked until they retire and die. That is not why you were born to be a human. That's not why you're here on the planet, to spend $50,000 at a university to be indoctrinated into the lies that were written into fake books. It's almost unbelievable that I have to explain this to you, but that's just where we are. Period. And here's some enlightening information. Egypt reveals 59 ancient coffins found near Saqqara pyramids, many of which hold mummies that they've known about for decades. And this is just propaganda, that they slowly release fake information to the public when they know there's 100,000 mummies that will reveal countless facts about our hidden history, but they just lie and say, oh yes, this was a worker that made the pyramids. I swear. Yes, look at his feet, the way they are wrapped in worker feet clothing. Yes, amazing. Yes. So it's very unfortunate that every piece of information is disinformation and that all your tax dollars are going to $23 million female toilets. Now, I have nothing against equality, and there should be a female toilet and a male toilet in a NASA spaceship. But the fact that NASA isn't doing a thing and spending millions of dollars to spin astronauts around space to piss in $23 million toilets, what have they given us since they were started? The reason they went to the moon in the 70s was to collect evidence of a micronova that destroyed all the antediluvian societies, the higher societies that knew more than we do today, that didn't pollute. that lived harmoniously with nature. The Atlanteans. It's been hidden from us because the powers that be that are satanic, that run the earth, that keep you in a slave society, are being controlled up above. And it's so sickening to watch this. Now, I walked away 6 years ago, and I will never go back for any reason, because these eyes realize, and everything that's written in the mainstream media is basically propaganda and a lie. Now, the rocket carrying radish seeds, meats, and cheeses, and a $23 million toilet is headed up to a space station where they're going to try to grow radish seeds in space. No one is moving to space. No one can live on the moon or Mars. There's too much cosmic radiation. We have no mitigation. And yet people are volunteering to go there? Well, why don't you volunteer to jump off the Royal Gorge Bridge and see if the water is soft enough 900 feet below to I mean, does anyone know how to research anymore? Or does everyone just repeat what someone else said? Now, NASA dropped new images of our universe that look straight up fake. This is coming from Popular Mechanics. If Popular Mechanics doesn't know that optics and technology gets greater as time progresses, then how are they even Popular Mechanics? It should be called Popular Dogma or Popular Propaganda. This looks fake. Space is fake. The Earth is flat. And Nibiru, Planet X, they're not telling us a lot. Look at it. It's like a cartoon. Hope you got something out of the video. We are living in challenging times where information, well, for the last 70 years, has been disinformation. And once you get 2 generations of disinformation, you get a whole population of puppets. Welcome to Puppet USA. Puppet Earth. COVID 1984. Al Gore's a whore. Thanks to all our one-time donors, our Patreons. Step up to the plate. Share this video. Subscribe to the channel. And be safe. Time is ticking. Are you farming? Are you?